The time has finally come where we can sit and break down UFC 300. It's just me today, so yeah, you'll just get my view on the fights. It feels like we've been fed shit fight night after shit fight night where there's been weird stoppages, but we finally have some really good fights to get into this weekend. Overall, when the card was first kind of getting announced, I was a bit weirded out by it, if it could really live up to the expectation we all expect it to. Obviously, the main event, not the one we were expecting. Rumours being made, we heard all sorts of stuff. Brock Lesnar back. I kind of expected Adesanya to be fighting Pereira for the light heavyweight title. That was where my brain was going with it. But, Dana White had other ideas, and maybe rushing back Jamal Hill for this main event. We see Achilles injuries sometimes can take a long time to recover from. I've watched some interviews over the last few days with some NFL players, and some NFL players, it literally has taken their career away from them. And Sean O'Malley's coach, Tim Welsh, just having the same injury, and he's about 5 months into his recovery, and he's just been able to sort of move around again. I think Jamal Hill did it 8 or 9 months ago, so you think maybe he's been in a training camp for 8 weeks. It's just a bit worrying how he will be from that. If I said that near him, he'd get very angry if you watched his interview. He's a bit touchy on the subject, but he's just touchy on anything you say to him, really. But yeah, there's loads of good fights to get into this weekend. From the first fight on the early prelims to the main event is just insane. Like, I think everyone on this card is capable, or most of them have main evented in a UFC fight night. The first fight, Figueiredo and Cody Garbrandt, obviously two former champions, headline main pay-per-views, and then Jim Miller, Bobby Green next, just legends. We got legendary fights. We got, Saturday night or Sunday morning. There's just really going to be history made with a lot of these fights on these sorts of cards. Hopefully we can see some sort of like big upsets. We got Cody Brundage. Obviously he probably won't be able to do anything. I'm not going to give away too much on what I think on that fight right now, but Holly Holm over Kyla Harrison. Holly Holm's kind of got a similar win in the Ronda Rousey sense, but yeah, we're going to start off by getting into the first fight on the night. And that's Deiveson Figueiredo versus Cody Garbrandt. For me, probably the best matchup on the early prelims, or maybe not necessarily matchup wise, because it doesn't make loads of sense. Figueiredo just beating, I think Rob Font was ranked number 8. Cody's not currently unranked, so it'll be interesting to see if that skill gap reflects. But both former champions, Cody managing to kind of get back on track, 2 wins in a row. Trevin Jones was a terrible fighter, for all honest, but managing to get a big knockout over Brian Kelleher, where the difference in competition, where Figueiredo's just fought Rob Font, who we've seen Rob Font piece Garbrandt up for 5 rounds, and Figueiredo managing to win that one rather comfortably. So yeah, obviously MMA math doesn't work like that, but the stylistic matchup for me is favouring Figueiredo. Cody, we know he's got extreme hand speed. That's his main sort of thing. Good knockout power for a bantamweight. Figueiredo looked to sort of have the same sort of knockout power. Maybe Rob Font never been finished before, and he was wobbling him with jabs and stuff. So it really does show sort of his power that carried up from flyweights. So I think the sensible pick on this one, I'm going to go Figueiredo knockout, because even if you look at Cody Garbrandt's last fight against Brian Kelleher, when he did kind of catch Kelleher, he did go back to that sort of old Cody Garbrandt that we're used to seeing, kind of rushing in, and just sort of old habits. They die hard, and they could be dying hard in this one, because Figueiredo carries extreme power and he's a finisher wherever the fight goes. We saw Cody Garbrandt mixing wrestling in his fight with Trevin Jones. Maybe that's more of a route he can go. We've seen Figueiredo kind of susceptible to trips in the clinch, been taken down quite a bit of flyweight. So there is ways Cody Garbrandt can win this, but to be honest, I think Figueiredo is going to finish him pretty early on. I'm going to go second round knockout for Figueiredo. I think Cody will be having some success. Figueiredo kind of struggles with straight shots, so if I was Cody, you stay on the outside, you pump the jab, you look to land those 1-2s and blitz inwards, and just stay on the outside and blitz Figueiredo, because I think that's the best way to go. And Cody being, I think, the tallest opponent Figueiredo's ever faced, which is really saying something. You know, it's small guys down at flyweight. He could try and use that, but I think he's going to be tagging Figueiredo and just get a bit overconfident and oversure of himself too early on and run into something big. I can see like a right overhand. We see Figueiredo's got a deadly left hook, which could land on the chin as well. And I just don't fancy Cody Garbrandt's chin holding up at this weight class. Yeah, obviously he's been at this weight class, but Figueiredo's power holding up at this weight class, and I don't know if Cody will be able to take that. Going into the next fight, Bobby Green, Jim Miller, two legends, two veterans of the sport. Jim Miller being on UFC 100, 200 and now 300, and actually probably on the best run he's been on in a while. I think he hasn't been in the rankings in almost 10 years, and he's got a chance to go back in with a win over Bobby Green. I think he's on a three fight win streak since his loss to Joe Solecki, and beating some real, not necessarily good guys, but young, sort of tough guys, and he's looked really good while doing it. I think the main keys to victory for Jim Miller in this one, we know his Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is just nasty. I think he's got submission wins over Charles Oliveira and loads of other people as well. Bobby Green has underrated wrestling, in my opinion. We see, obviously, he got destroyed by Islam Makhachev, but who hasn't at that weight? Whoever's fought him, really, apart from like Arman, has really struggled, and Volk moving up did well too. But Bobby Green, slick boxing, slick head movement. I think Jim Miller, at his age where he is, will struggle to find the chin of Bobby Green. If he does, I think he could maybe hurt Bobby Green, because that knockout from Jalen Turner being only 4 months ago was just a really brutal one, and we saw how long the ref let that play on. So it's a case where this one, if you're a better, stay the hell away from this one, in my opinion, because Bobby might not be right after that knockout. He's taken a lot of damage in his career. Jim Miller's a 40-year-old man at the end of the day, and Bobby Green's still got insane reflexes, decent power, knocked out a lot of guys of that weight class, and just the angles and the speed he comes from. I think Jim Miller will really struggle with that. I actually see this fight going quite far into the later rounds, maybe even a decision. So I'm leaning Bobby Green decision. You know, on this podcast or these videos, me, Solly, Fergal, whoever's been on here, we don't like picking against Bobby Green, but if I was ever going to pick anyone to beat Bobby Green, it would be Jim Miller, because he's just a legend of the sport, and to get into the rankings at this stage in his career would just be a really good sort of feat. And I do kind of want to see it, but Bobby's only just got there himself, so these guys are kind of battling to really see who can just defy age the most, both being older guys taking a lot of punishment, but kind of in a last of their few fights looking as good as they ever have. So this matchup's really interesting, but I'm just going to lean Bobby Green. And getting into the next one, Jessica Andrade versus Marina Rodriguez. It's an interesting matchup. Marina Rodriguez, really solid Thai boxer, Muay Thai sort of background, decent striker, where Jessica Andrade, we know what she is. She's a brawler, a lot of forward pressure, looks to mix in the takedowns, but the worry for me is her chin just seems gone at this point. She looked good in her last fight against, who was it? Against Mackenzie Dern. Obviously, the striking defense, of course, is Mackenzie Dern. No one else can strike like that in the UFC. Just running face first into punches. It's not good. It's not a good look, but it's a good win to get back for Andrade. And I think she's going to really struggle in this one with the range of Marina Rodriguez, keeping her at distance with front kicks, sort of knees up the middle. She's really dangerous from everywhere the fight goes. And it's just any matchup kind of around this level for Jessica Andrade worries me now, where women at the strawweight weight class are really good strikers. We saw Yan Xiaonan get, I think it was her first knockout in the UFC over Andrade really easily. Andrade kind of just leaves herself so open at certain points. So yeah, I'm going to go Marina Rodriguez decision, because I think Andrade will really just struggle to land those big shots with all the sort of weapons Marina can use to keep her in distance. So yeah, I'm going Marina Rodriguez decision on that one. Getting into the next fight, last fight on the early prelims. Real interesting matchup here. Jalen Turner versus Renato Moicano. Manny Moicano been on a bit of a tear recently, looking pretty good. Last fight out, not the most entertaining fight over Drew Dober, but did what he had to do to win. Drew Dober being one of the most dangerous lightweights that we've ever seen, the most knockouts at lightweight, and Moicano took a lot of time off before that fight, so he took the safe route, kind of went wrestling. We know how good his jiu-jitsu is, but he just sort of suffocated Drew Dober, and I can kind of see a similar thing here with Jalen Turner. Jalen Turner obviously not shown the best takedown defense. Gamrot really managing to control him when he got those takedowns, and I think, if we're honest, Gamrot's been shown to not be as good as we all thought after that sort of Arman Tayukian fight. There's been a lot of guys like Dariush dominating him, RDA, even their last fight, he lost pretty convincingly, but really rocked him bad, dropped him at certain points. Jalen Turner was able to do the same. I think Renato Moicano, his striking is a bit better maybe than Gamrot's. I don't even know, to be fair. Gamrot's looked okay on the feet against Vazeev in his last fight. But Jalen Turner, he takes it on the feet all day long. Moicano has to get this fight to the ground. Jalen Turner does have some sort of nasty chokes off his back that he can threaten with, but Moicano is just way too experienced in jiu-jitsu to be caught in them, in my opinion. So it just comes down at the end of the day, can Renato Moicano control him on the ground? Will Jalen Turner, I can see maybe him giving his back up, which Moicano can snap on at any opportunity. We know how good he is on the ground. But saying that, I think he'll struggle to get Jalen there. And on the feet, it could be a real massacre. Jalen Turner, really good on the feet. The only person recently who's really been able to take him into deep water is Dan Hooker, and that's because Dan Hooker's a psychopath. It's not nothing to do with Jalen Turner. Jalen Turner just got tired of whooping Dan Hooker's ass, and Dan Hooker just started marching forward in that fight and managed to turn the tide with a broken arm as well. So shout out to Dan Hooker. But yeah, just sort of crazy. That one was just sort of crazy blip. I feel like he'll learn a lot off that. He'll come back better, and that's why I'm going to pick Jalen Turner in this one. I think he will get taken down. He'll do just enough to not get submitted, and I think the damage, we know damage trumps all. That's the main thing they look for in the scoring criteria, which is also why I watched that Chris Curtis, Brendan Allen fight back. A lot of people might think this is a bit mad. I've seen some people agree with me around as well, but I think Curtis nicks that fight. But, we can talk about that after we break down these fights, because there's just so many crazy ones to get into. But yeah, I'm going Jalen Turner decision. I think he'll just manage to do enough damage, hurting Moicano on the feet. We've seen how tough Moicano is when he gets hurt. The perfect example is that RDA fight he took on a few days' notice. He got absolutely battered in that, and managed to fight his way back into it and landing good shots in the later rounds after being stunned and dropped, and got his ass kicked for a while, and he really does stay in there. So that's why I'm going decision, Jalen Turner. But yeah, we're getting on to the real spicy ones now. This one next, first fight on the prelims, Sodiq Yusuff, Diego Lopez, is a real interesting matchup. Sodiq Yusuff, really big and strong for the featherweight weight class, where Diego Lopez, again, super strong guy, really wiry striking. You can see how hard he does hit, but I think Sodiq trumps that, and he is the more well-rounded technical striker, and that's kind of why I'm actually leaning Sodiq Yusuff in this one, which is quite a big underdog pick, I think, and a lot of people on that Diego Lopez hype train, and I'm on it too. Like, I love Diego Lopez. I think he can go really far in this division. But I think just styles make fights, and if he can't get Sodiq to the floor, I think he's going to take a lot of big shots. He can be a bit wild in the pocket, even Evloev managing to hit him with really big clean shots, and Sodiq brings a different level of power. We saw in the Edson Barboza fight, Edson still at 39 or whatever, however old he is now, such a good technical striker, and although he did beat Sodiq Yusuff, those first two rounds especially, Sodiq was putting a beating on him. I don't know how Edson survived that, because we've seen Edson get knocked out quite a few times now, and Yusuff putting shots on him, just the noise. I'm pretty sure that was in the Apex, and I watched the highlight video back not that long ago, and yeah, the noises on those shots from Sodiq Yusuff hits real hard. I don't think he's going to get a finish over Diego Lopez. I actually think this is going to be a bit of a war. Lopez very well could submit him. I'm not this, I'll go through my picks at the end and tell you the ones I'm really confident on and the ones I'm not. But yeah, the Sodiq Yusuff one is the one of my picks that I'm a bit more less confident in. But I think he can just do enough to get it done on damage. And yeah, I'm going to go Sadiq Youssef this decision as well. Holly Holm versus Kyla Harrison. I think if this fight was maybe 7 years ago, I'd probably be picking Holly Holm. But if we're going to be real, Kyla Harrison, judo black belt, judo gold medalist, Olympian. We've kind of seen a matchup like this before, where Holm really just managing to show the dodgy footwork and the striking of Ronda Rousey. I've been watching Kyla Harrison. I'm guilty of, to be honest, I've not watched loads of Kyla Harrison before, but watching her the last couple of days, her stand-up is pretty horrible, to be honest. It's pretty shit to watch. The footwork's horrible. She gets herself into trouble in a lot of different occasions, but she's so strong. She is probably one of the strongest females physically I've ever seen in this sport. And Holly Holm doesn't have the footwork she used to. She has, in her later career, got way better in the clinch, etc. But what she has started doing in her later career, which I really don't like for her in this matchup, she punches her way into the clinch, and that's why we've seen so many stinky main events with Holly Holm, where she's winning these fights against, people we just don't care about watching, if we're honest, and she's punching her way into the clinch and holding it against the cage. But yeah, I think Kyla Harrison at some point is going to get her hands on her, drag Holly Holm down and submit her. I'm going to go second round submission for Kyla Harrison. I think she can come and make a real big sort of kick in the UFC. She's so dominant in her area where, if you're a female specialist, especially at bantamweight or the one above as well, featherweight, you can really, really kick on in those divisions. So yeah, I'm going to go Kyla Harrison. Excited to see her in the UFC. The more interesting thing about this fight is if she even makes weight. I'm pretty sure she will. She looks pretty good from the photos I've seen. Not in that weight. She don't look that good, but she looks pretty slim. And yeah, I'm going Kyla Harrison. I think it's the safer bet on this one. Probably for reason one of the biggest favourites on the card. I'm pretty sure she'll win that fight, but I wouldn't be shocked if Holly Holm win. How much do we see fighters come into the UFC with all this hype around them? It kind of like the Ben Askren situation, where meant to be this dominant grappler, been champion in Bellator and won championship, and comes over and Robbie Lawler almost murders him in his first fight. But the problem is, Kyla Harrison's not fighting Robbie Lawler, is she? She's fighting Holly Holm, and Holly Holm hasn't looked like murdering no one in a while. So yeah, Kyla Harrison on that one. Going on to the next fight. For me, this is where the card gets really, really spicy with the top contenders and sort of championship level fights, where you could see, one fight from any of these next fighters can get them a title shot. So yeah, going into it, Calvin Kattar versus Aljamain Sterling. I love this matchup. LJ finally moving up to featherweight. It's been kind of long awaited. He started, when he first lost to Peter Yan, I thought it'd be a lot quicker. Well, he didn't lose to Peter Yan, you know what I mean? When he got his ass kicked and then handed the belt by Peter Yan, I thought he'd move up quicker maybe after he lost to Peter Yan again, but then he goes on to shock a lot of us, beats Peter Yan, which he did, that wasn't a robbery. He goes on and has quite a dominant run at bantamweight, I think joining Dominic Cruz for the most title defences, so really made a legacy at bantamweight, and in my opinion, this is the smart thing to do, because he got knocked out by Sean O'Malley. Most people thinking Aljo was going to win that fight, including me. So he didn't need to stay at bantamweight and maybe ruin his bantamweight legacy anymore. Going up to featherweight, you can kind of have a fresh start fighting Calvin Kattar, coming off that really bad knee injury. And Kattar being 36 years age, coming off a knee injury where, when we usually see these knee injuries, it's usually their front knee, it kind of gets stuck and twisted, or a kick happens, but the back knee is a really scary injury, and you listen to the extent of his injury. Apparently his knee pretty much shattered, which I don't know, it's bad, and he hasn't fought since, when was his last fight? It was 2 years ago, so last time he fought he was 34 years old. That's kind of like just coming to the end of your prime. Now he's coming back off a 2-year layoff and a terrible knee injury. That probably points to Aljamain Sterling being the favourite, which I think he is. I think he just about is. But I don't really like this matchup for Aljamain Sterling. We saw Kattar, when he was fight in 2021 consistently just before, or 2020 just before that Max Holloway fight. He fought Dan Ige to a decision. Dan Ige being a really good, a decent wrestler himself. He shot 9 takedowns and didn't get one, and the only person who got a takedown is Calvin Kattar, scoring 1 takedown in that fight. So 100% takedown rate against Dan Ige. Aljo does bring a whole different level of grappling where he has that sort of awkward striking to go with it, and he can kind of strike his way into these grappling situations. But the striking on the feet, it could get messy for Aljo if he isn't able to take him down. Just close your eyes and picture it right now. He shoots a double leg. Calvin Kattar pushes to the head, shakes him off, and all of a sudden they're back on the feet and he's pumping jabs in his face. It could be a very, very long night for Aljamain Sterling. And this one, I'm going to go with the underdog. I'm going Calvin Kattar. I know this one I've kind of been chopping and changing in my mind for quite a while now. And, I'm not sure on this pick, and I can't blame anyone for going with Aljo, but I want to change up some picks. I feel like a lot of people are going to be having the same sort of picks, and this is a fight I can see Calvin winning. So yeah, I'm going to go Calvin Kattar decision. I think it'll be a close fight. Yeah, again, I spoke about this a lot. Danish trumps it when I think when they are on the feet, which will, in my opinion, be majority of the fight. He's going to be hitting Aljo with a lot of jabs, straight punches. Even his low kicks look really better towards the sort of, I'm going to say towards the end of his career, but towards the sort of end of his fighting a couple of years ago, where, it's kind of like a new fighter coming back in the rankings now, where someone takes this much time off due to an injury. It's the same with Rakic, which, we'll get straight into now. I think that's next on the card. Yeah, Yuri Prochazka, Alexander Rakic. Again, if it wasn't for the knee, I think it was a knee injury as well, Alexander Rakic. If it wasn't for that, I think I'd be more reliant to pick him in this. I'm not saying I'm not, but I'm not saying I am. Yuri Prochazka, his sort of awkward striking style is effective in this weight class, that some of the people not necessarily having the speed to catch him in these, or they do have the speed, but he just seems to have some insane chin. But Alex Pereira really managed to sort of show how to slowly dissect and beat Yuri Prochazka, especially if Yuri couldn't shoot takedown, because he probably only won that first round with the takedown he shot against Pereira, where Rakic brings the same sort of weapons as Pereira, but really dominant wrestling with it. Rakic, some of the nastiest kicks in the light heavyweight division I've ever seen. We saw against Anthony Smith for the skirmish. It's not a nice fight to watch. Just destroyed his legs, both legs. Anthony Smith is probably one of the worst leg defenders I've ever seen in my life. And it really got shown in that fight. Really bad beatdown, and controlled someone like Anthony Smith on top when he did take him down as well. And not one submission threat. Yuri has shown he can kind of fight everywhere the fight goes, especially in that Glover Teixeira fight where, everyone was saying if that fight stays on the feet, Yuri's going to knock him out pretty quick. If he gets taken down, Glover's going to submit him pretty quick. And, it ended up with Glover battering him on the feet and Yuri submitting him at the end. So, it just shows Yuri's a type of fighter that can beat you anyway. 3 rounds, though, that's the problem. If it was a 5-round fight, I think I'd be picking Yuri to finish him late. Rakic, I'm going to go Rakic. He's really good and patient on the feet. The leg kicks are going to be a big problem because we saw Alex Pereira cause Yuri a lot of problems with those low kicks, and Rakic is just not just as good with them, but he's pretty good with them. Really, really powerful leg kicks. So I'm going to go Rakic decision as well. I'm going a lot of decisions on here, but there's just so many good matchups that are going to be tight, and it can go either way if we're honest. Any of these, if Yuri wins, I think it will probably be knockout. So yeah, going on to the main card now though. Oh, it just said Justin Gaethje versus Max Holloway is cancelled, but that is not true. Thank God, I just don't know shit myself. Bo Nickel versus Cody Brundage. Do we really need to sit and talk about this one? Bo Nickel 5-0 in MMA, which is just mental. On the main event, on the main card of UFC 300. And he's dragged Cody Brundage up with him, which is a real interesting matchup. Maybe, in my opinion, they could swap this fight with literally any fight on the early prelims, apart from maybe Bobby Green should be above this fight. Jessica Andrade probably should be above this fight. She's 2-time champion, wins at many weight classes. This fight could be on the early prelims, but they like building their guys. Bo Nickel probably brings a different sort of fan base in. Maybe I don't know how I know wrestling is pretty big in the US, but I don't know um, how likely like all the just pure wrestling fans are, because he is one of the best wrestlers to ever come out of America. So yeah, that might draw some new audiences in, and he is kind of sending a sheep to slaughter here, isn't it? Because he is going to just rip through Cody Bundage, in my opinion. Anywhere the fight goes, Cody Bundage did get a couple good, well, no he didn't, he got one good win coming into this, where he was about to get submitted and just by fluke slammed the guy's head onto the floor and won. Before that, against Jelka Malkoon, getting absolutely battered, and just take a couple punches to the head and complain and then get a win, which, fair enough, you don't want to be punched in the head, but yeah, Bo Nickel's going to completely run through him, in my opinion. I'm going to go first round submission for Bo Nickel. Cody Bundage is meant to be a wrestler, but gets out-grappled by Cedric Dumas, so that's all you need to hear. And in that Cedric Dumas fight, I think he either took it on short notice or the opponent was changed on short notice, and you could just tell he did not want to be there from the first second. He was kind of diving for the leg and then just giving up position. It's just sort of I don't even know how. It's just weird, man. Like, you're meant to be a UFC fighter, you can't just quit in the middle of the cage, and that's what he did, and just kind of laid there and hoped he didn't get a finish, and just was happy to lose a decision. Where, Bo Nickel, this is the biggest opportunity of his life on the main card of UFC 300. I think Cody Bundage is going to shit it and just bottle it and not even really put up a fight. Where, we've heard about his skills kind of by Anthony Smith, which I don't know how reliable that source is. I'm a big fan of Anthony Smith, but he's said some horrific stuff in the past. I think he said Jim Miller would submit Brock Lesnar or something along those lines. So you can only take that with a grain of salt. So yeah, Bo Nickel submission early in the fight. Going on to the next one. This is the one I'm most hyped for. Charles Oliveira versus Arman Tsarukyan. Man, I don't know if I can deal with seeing Charles lose. It was bad enough seeing Volk lose. Then we got Aldo on UFC 301, and we don't know if he'll win. And then, in these next couple cards, we got Charles Oliveira, who's probably in my top 5 favourite fighters. We got Alex Pereira, who's probably my top 5, and Jose Aldo was literally my favourite fighter for years. Just the way he went down a weight class to bantamweight, where everyone always said he should move up to lightweight, and he just managed to almost get a title shot there, just getting held against the cage by Merab. But in his last fight, I thought he retired too early, and I'm really excited to see him back. But yeah, there's just a real chance we see a lot of my favourite fighters lose in these next few weeks. Charles, though, I'm picking him. I think on the feet, Charles is kind of... Arman's very dangerous, but Charles has got more weapons, in my opinion. His boxing's a lot cleaner. The forward pressure can cause Arman a lot of problems. There's a few Arman fights that I've watched recently that make me go with this pick, and I'm more confident on it, mainly being the Matt Favola one. He really, really struggled to control Matt Favola, getting him on the ground. And a lot of people don't like to admit this, but before the first round of the Islam Charles fight, when Islam did get the takedown, that's the closest to a match or a stalemate you can see on the ground, where Islam was on top and he could not move from Charles' guard. He gets swept in the end and Charles almost gets his back, and he really just showed to be on another level, where if Arman even does try and take him down, then there's real threat straight away, where not necessarily where we're watching at home and we can't necessarily see everything he's doing, but all of a sudden, as soon as you take him down and you're in his guard, he's grabbing wrist control, he's shuffling his hips, he's creating more space to try and get you in these submissions. And I don't think there's many people on the planet that can survive with him there. And on the feet, I think he can really hurt Arman. Arman leaves himself open when he's under pressure. We saw against Hakeem Silva getting rocked with the big counter hook, and Charles has caught many people with that himself. The famous one being Chandler, and who was it? The guy, Jared Gordon. Yeah, Jared Gordon, the nasty slip hook. Also, just Charles, that's one of Charles' best punches, and I think he's going to hurt him. Arman's going to kind of shoot a sort of weak double leg attempt while he's rocked, and he's going to get guillotined. That's my prediction for the fight. My most specific one as well. I see that going down that way. But going into the next one, Justin Gaethje, Max Holloway. Can't need to take a breath. This is a crazy card. There's just so many good fights. I could sit here and talk about break down these fights even more than I have, but I just want to give you guys my picks on each one, really. me being here on my own, I can't get other people's opinion on it. So I'm just running you through what I think and how these matchups will go. But Justin Gaethje, Max Holloway. When this was first announced, I thought it was going to be a bit of a bloodbath for Justin Gaethje being the one. No, that's weird if I say he was going to be the one bathing in it, but he's the one in control of that. And but now the fight's got closer. I'm not saying I'm leaning Max Holloway, but I see this fight being very competitive. I think Max can do a lot of things well. Since that third Volk loss, he's shown to really maybe concentrate more on his defense. But I mean, that's what people say. And to be honest, I don't really believe that. If I'm going to be real, we saw against Korean Zombie, he was getting tagged up a bit. But what he has done, he's added his kicks very well. His sort of anticipation for shots is got better, and he's not so willing to stand in the pocket. He likes controlling at his range. He looks to pump that jab a lot more, which I think that's when he did fight his best. We saw the Calvin Kattar and Brian Ortega fights, he was always keeping them on the end of his punches and closing the distance when he could. And I think Gaethje will struggle with that. Gaethje's a very sort of one shot power shot fighter. If he does throw a combination, it's usually the overhand to the left hook, which is probably the most dangerous thing Max has to look out for. Obviously the leg kicks being a very bad thing too. But I think Max putting on the size he has, maybe putting a bit more pop on his punches, is going to cause Gaethje a lot of problems. I think Max is probably going to lose the first 3 rounds, just because the way to beat Max, you've got to punch with Max. So we saw Arnold Allen, what the rounds he did win against Max, he wasn't letting Max go first. Dustin Poirier being the prime example of this, and Volk just never let Max go first in any of their fights apart from that second one. You got to beat Max to the punch. You got to be the one sort of engage him first and putting those power shots on him to kind of deter him from being able to just start unloading the combinations he does, which I think Gaethje will do very well. I do see Gaethje getting hurt in this fight, and maybe Max is making a late comeback in round 4 and 5, but I think Justin will just do enough damage to win a decision. I could see even a real late stoppage if he messes Max's legs up really bad, but yeah, personally, I don't see it going that way. I think Max is the toughest son of a bitch we've ever seen in the UFC, and the amount of fights he's had since he's been fighting in the UFC since he's 20, and he's never been dropped, so that does just show sort of the next level chin and toughness. Just they build him different in Hawaii. We see it with Dan Ige too. So yeah, I'm going Justin Gaethje decision. Weili Zhang against Zhang Yaonan, the battle of the Chinese, let's call it. I don't know how they feel about this, how they would feel about this, UFC fans over in China. I think they've got a UFC PI there, or that might be Singapore, it's one of the two. So yeah, you've got a lot of Chinese fans now, so really conflicting thoughts on this one for them, probably, not for me. Weili, let's be real, she's probably top 3 best strawweights of all time. She's probably going to go on to be the best strawweight of all time. The only person really that has put a dent in that is Rose with those 2 wins. Yan Xiaonan, I do really like her style, dangerous southpaw, but for me it's just a lack of finishing ability. And we saw when she fought someone good on the ground, Carla Esparza was just managed to crucifix her and sort of dominate that fight. I sort of see that's the way Weili will go with this one. There's no point in risking it on the feet. Weili becoming so much more well-rounded. I think she did some training with Henry Cejudo, and we know the level of wrestling he brings, and we saw Weili getting that submission over Carla and using her wrestling against Lemos a lot in her last fight. That is very possible that she'll do it again here. On the feet though, I think it's a good matchup. I think they'll have some good exchanges, but I'm going to go Weili submission round 4. I think she'll probably wait to use the takedown. She'll probably because Yan Yaonan has been training with Team Alpha Male, who's got a lot of high level wrestlers. So yeah, I think she won't kind of expose her game plan too early, and she'll wait to use it, kind of tire her out, let her punch herself out in the feet a little bit first, and then mixing the wrestling a bit, probably late 2nd round, 3rd round, 4th round, going on from there. I think she'll probably get the submission. Now it's the big one, time for the big boys. Alex Pereira versus Jamal Hill. Great matchup. Jamal Hill is only sort of blemish in the UFC being that horrible Paul Craig loss, where Alex Pereira, a lot of his fans, the real cringy ones, I'm an Alex Pereira fan, but, I'm not screaming Shrama on the fucking internet 24/7. And harassing everyone around him. So yeah, Alex Pereira, Jamal Hill, interesting matchup. Both of them big knockout ability. We see the power of Jamal Hill kind of disregards technique and just goes for power sometimes, which I'm not mad at. He's a very passionate guy and he just wants to get in there and very badly hurt people. You can just tell by the way he is. Alex Pereira, the same really, just speaks a different language, so you don't get to understand it as much. You know, he's a dangerous man. I saw him talking to Charles Oliveira and he said he's got his left hand calibrated for Jamal Hill, which is just a scary thing to think about. Just think how intense this is going to be when they're stood opposite each other, just staring at each other. Jamal Hill's probably like pacing back and forth, just waiting to get his hands on him, and he's not going to wrestle. It's going to be a striking match, which is why I'm going Alex Pereira. I think Jamal Hill, coming off the injury, being a southpaw as well, you know, does take away that lead leg kick a bit, but, you know, Alex Pereira is such an elite striker. He'll still find ways to land it. You just got to be careful he don't get too predictable with it, because Jamal Hill could time him and land a big shot. You know, if Izzy was able to hurt him multiple times in their fights, Jamal Hill definitely has the power to knock Alex Pereira out. It's a pretty pick 'em fight for me. The same reason I went Alex Pereira over Yuri. You know, he's such a elite level striker to these guys that, you know, the chances of him finding his shots and knocking them out compared to them. If Jamal Hill wins, in my opinion, he'll land a big shot like he did on Johnny Walker. It's not going to be too competitive in the first round when they're kind of exchanging shots. I think Alex Pereira will slowly start picking him apart. You just got to be careful where he does get that blitz and opportunity like we saw against Izzy twice in those fights, getting hurt by it. He's got to be careful not to get knocked out while he's got Jamal pushed against the fence. Did look a lot better against Yuri, and the main show that he did work on it was against Jan Blachowicz when Jan was really tired and he did have him push against the fence. He didn't just start exploding with crazy shots. He was picking his shots a lot better. I'm going to get Alex Pereira second round knockout. I just think it's the safer pick. He hits so hard. We saw him hitting, I think, 190 on that Ngannou machine. Everyone's bloody breaking Francis Ngannou's record. It's bollocks really, but it shows how hard Alex Pereira does hit, and that's why I think the safer pick, Alex Pereira knockout. That's basically, that is all the picks I've got for today. I'll be uploading, I think, Devin Haney, Ryan Garcia might be this weekend or next weekend. If it's this weekend, I'll be uploading a breakdown on that. That's a fight I've been keeping an eye on. Or if it's next weekend, expect it in the week at some point. Make sure to let us know who you picked as well. And I hope you enjoyed.